In INA, local government New Zealand has welcomed the Three Waters Working Group's recommendations that there's council shareholding and added protections against privatisation. The organisation says the suggested changes proposed go a long way in providing councils and communities with the added protection they were asking for. One of the working group's key members, Western Bay of Plenty Mayor Gary Webber, is with us. Morena.
Morena.
So is this the most significant aspect of the report, effectively that councils would be able to still retain some power?
Absolutely, it's more than some power. The sort of significant feedback from across the nation with the proposal was that the assets were going to go to another organisation, which rightly had been sort of built up by councils over time. There was the significant opposition to the proposal, and our recommendation is that those assets will be recognised in the water service entities by way of a shareholding owned by the councils, and that means those assets are owned by the councils on behalf of their communities.
Just tell me how this shareholding would work.
Well, you will end up with a shareholding of one share for every approximately 50,000 people. And what the fundamental thing is then, further in the recommendations, is that the rights that attract to that is the ability to oppose any shareholding sale. And that would mean that, or the recommendation is that up to 100% of the councillors, or if they went out to a poll of the population, would have to approve the sale of that share. But that would also have to have the unanimous approval of all of the other councils in the entity. So it's pretty much locking in privatisation of those enduring assets.
So if there was a shareholding, would that also mean that you could get potentially into a dividend scenario?
No, what we have said is these are services to the communities, and the aim is not to make a profit. It is to run them basically at zero base profit, recovering the full cost of the operation.
If this is taken on board by the Minister, do you anticipate that it will silence many of the Three Waters critics?
I think it will go some way towards that. There are other issues around the local voice, and we put recommendations in that place that there needs to be a recognition from the council level up to a sub-regional level, up to a regional level, to make sure that individual councils' needs are heard and acted upon.
So is it also baking in that kind of the local voice, but at the top level of this?
Absolutely. That's what we have tried to put in place around the ownership of the assets, clearing up those issues that were rightly brought up by many of the councils to, as you say, bake them in to make sure they can't happen.
Phil Goff did put out a minority report. He doesn't support the rest of these proposals. He says it still fails to live up to the needs of the super city. So there is still argument going on here even within the group. Where does this leave the Minister?
Well, I think that's a question you're going to have to ask the Minister. I don't want to double guess the Minister, but I think you need to also accept, if you've read the report, that Mayor Goff is in support of significant parts of the recommendations.
But nonetheless, it doesn't entirely, if you like, slam dunk it and make it clear for the Minister. When you've got a minority report being put out as well, it does show that there is still different schools of thought, if you like.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure there are different schools of thought, but if you look at the significant majority, which the objection was around the assets not being owned by the councils and the lack of public voice, those are supported all the way through by those on the working group.
Gary Webber, thank you very much. Western Bay of Plenty Mayor, also on the working group of Three Waters there.